Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in checks notes, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Hey, was it my turn? It's me again. God,
Hey.
What's going on? You've thrown me completely off with that.
Yeah.
Change of location. I'm DJ Ross, I think, and I'm not in Pittsburgh.
No. That'd be really cool if you were. That'd be real neat.
That'd be a weird coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you the person across the hall from me at the Hampton Inn who's playing Fox News at full volume at 10 o'clock at night?
No.
No. Okay. Because that guy certainly is, and I'm not happy about it.
I thought the deal with that is you just turn it on and you, it's on, but it's muted, usually, is how I encounter that.
Yeah. He didn't get the memo on that then, clearly.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not me, so direct your complaints elsewhere.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not that it matters at all, but traveling, looking at a slightly different corner of a room and talking into the same exact microphone today. So yeah,
you should have let me know. We could have coordinated. I could have gone to I don't know, some weird motel somewhere.
Some other city.
Done
yeah.
An on tour episode.
And our listeners would be all, "What's happening on VGH this week? Holy cow!"
They sound like they're in a corner of a different room.
True, that's true. Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Refunct and Sephonie, wrapping up Mutazione, and boycotting Bunny Day because it's awful.
It is, from what I remember.
Terrible, just horrible.
Okay, but we're going to talk about it, apparently.
Oh, yeah. What's the point of boycotting it if I don't talk about it?
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess you're raising anti-Bunny Day awareness.
Yeah. So let's go there. Last week was this sort of roller coaster of emotions in Animal Crossing. I still play daily. I still check in every day.
Okay.
And, because I had my birthday last week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And your
Happy
birthday,
by the way.
Thank you, by the way. And your birthday in Animal Crossing is always a good time. And I really think they go hard on it with a whole, what you call it? What is the new game called? Not New Leaf, New Horizons. Your birthday, I've had 3 of them now in game, is always really, really fun.
I have to say, even for someone like me who is so just cynical about Animal Crossing at this point, the birthday thing is so nice. It's fun to just check in and do that.
Yeah. So for gamers who have not experienced a birthday in Animal Crossing,
don't spoil it for them.
Okay. Well, I won't give a sort of a minute by minute play by play, but it's a delight. All of the whole town wishes you a happy birthday at some point or another. Birthday cupcakes are involved. You get presents from people. And there's a whole collection of cool little goodies. You get a little pair of glasses that look like 2 birthday cakes. You get a hat that looks like made out of balloons, but also looks like a birthday cake. And, there's a giant sign you can erect that says Happy Birthday, Randy. And it's, again, just an absolute delight. So I had a nice day with Sarah. We went out for dinner and had some adult beverages, and I came home and I fired up Animal Crossing and had a whole second celebration. It was very, very, very nice. And then, immediately the next day, my entire island is taken over by Zipper T Bunny and, eggs everywhere, buried in the ground, falling from the sky, growing on the trees, just this plague of Bunny Day grossness happening everywhere. And I decided, 3 years in, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to put up with Zipper T and his nonsense. So I just
think a lot of people decided in halfway through the first Bunny Day.
Yeah. I mean, those were dark days because all of us had just started the game at that point, and all of those important resources that you needed, like, things from the sky and things from your trees and things you were digging up, were completely taken over by Bunny Day nonsense, and most of us were angry about it. But 3 years later, when I don't need those things so much anymore, it's still annoying. It's still deeply, deeply annoying.
Oh, yeah. No, it just takes over your whole town. It's obnoxious.
So, yeah. After my birthday, I took 4 whole days off from Animal Crossing, which
Wow.
I've never done before.
Wow.
The longest break I've taken from Animal Crossing New Horizons.
So this was a real boycott.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I went pretty hard on this.
That's impressive. I had no idea.
Yeah. It pained me because I have that sort of like that muscle memory, that sort of like, that daily instinct of sort of like, oh, what's going on? What's going on in my town tonight? But nope, I wasn't going to do it. I did not want to look at Zipper T's dead eyes and
It's just so weird. Yeah.
What hell hath he wrought on my village?
Oh, man, that reminds me. It's got to be like cherry blossom season, so I should log back in since it's like the 1 week of the year where I can appreciate the little cherry tree walk. Not
Yeah,
cherry
you missed
tree,
it, unfortunately,
cherry
but-
it's done? Oh, well.
It's done. Yeah, it's short. It's only like 7 days, but yeah, it is the right before the whole Bunny Day nonsense.
Okay, well, next year, I guess.
There's always next year. So yeah, there is some hullabaloo in the Animal Crossing community because Nintendo has taken Nature Day, which is sort of an appropriation of Earth Day, out of the game. It's not happening in the game this year.
Oh, and it did last year?
And it did last year and the year before, yeah. So for some reason, and it's like a ticket stamp rally thing at the museum. It's fun, it's cute, but once you do it, you kind of do it. But they're not doing it this year. So if this is your first year playing Animal Crossing New Horizons, you don't get to do Nature Day. And that's bizarre. Like, why leave Bunny Day in and take Nature Day out? So I don't know what's Nintendo doing, but I don't like it.
It's more interesting to me that we still get these glimpses into, like, the way they're running events makes it seem like it's kind of a live service game.
Yeah.
Like in the previous Animal Crossing, the events were all just baked in. Like, oh, it's April 20th, it's Nature Day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember there ever being a case where something could disappear like that. But apparently they can just flip the switch on them if they want. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was sort of one of the interesting things about that first year is that, people would time travel to like, let's see what Christmas is like or Halloween is like. And in previous editions of the game, you could do Halloween early if you time traveled to it. But in New Horizons, they hadn't patched that into the game yet. So you could time travel to October 31st and it would just be another fall day.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the case.
Yeah. Most of those, like Halloween, Christmas, and stuff like that, were part of a patch, would get sort of patched into the game with an update in New Horizons, anyways. But in, like you said, in the DS games and stuff like that, they were just on the card.
Yeah. Interesting. So they didn't explain why they're not doing it this year.
No, I don't think there has been, as much as I keep up with the news on this, I don't think there has been a sort of an official Nintendo explanation to why it hasn't sort of popped up in the rotation.
It wouldn't, conflict with another event that was supposed to be taking place or anything?
Yeah, that's sort of my theory, is that maybe it just, with Easter being kind of early-ish. I guess it's a little early this year. Maybe that it's just kind of too much on the calendar for once.
Okay, yeah. Because the previous years, it overlapped with, the cherry blossom season, right?
I believe so. That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll do a weird thing, like have Earth Day in May or something.
Yeah, I don't know. They do a May Day thing. There's usually like I believe there's a little special island you can travel out to, and there's a maze, and there's a cool villager you kind of hang out with at the end of the maze and stuff like that. But yeah,
they postponed. I forget if I mentioned this, but they postponed Halloween in Final Fantasy last year because the expansion was coming out.
Oh, really?
And then the expansion got delayed, so they had to postpone it again. So we just had Halloween in January this year. It was very weird.
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny.
I was like, you had to drag out all those Halloween decorations again. It's like, oh, this is strange. Like Halloween in December, sure. You could do a Nightmare Before Christmas thing, but I don't know what to do with Halloween in January.
Yeah.
That's not a movie.
Nightmare Before Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, I just like that, in video games, the seasons or the holidays are just unpredictable. You could have Halloween when you least expect it.
Yeah. That's I like that. I get people on social media and stuff like that. Oh, wait, today's halfway to Halloween or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's my vibe. I'm here for it. Let's dress up and do spooky things. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of experience with like service games and stuff like that, so I've not had a lot of holiday events and things like that in video games.
Mm-hmm.
What was the one I played? Destiny. I played 1 year for Extra Life, and which is usually kind of the first week of November, and they were still doing Halloween in Destiny, and it was cool. They had the little hub village there with everybody kind of decorated and little pumpkins and purple and orange lights everywhere, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Keep it like this all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my kind of one experience with both Destiny and an MMO type game, structured game that has a sort of holiday served up. Yeah.
Yeah. So now all your memories of Destiny are just going to have this weird like Halloween motif whenever you think of it. It's like, oh, Destiny, that was that Halloween shooter, right? Like
it's the Halloween game. Yeah, exactly.
What did you play?
Nightmare Before Destiny. That was yeah. If I went back to it now, it'd probably be very sad.
Yeah. Well, maybe in October it can be your annual return to Destiny.
Yeah, my once a year check-in for Halloween festivities in Destiny.
Oh, man.
So how's life? How's spring on the West Coast? How's things going in your end of the world?
Oh, it's great. There are no bunnies in sight, so.
None? Good. Excellent.
Couldn't ask for more.
Happy 420. 420 is upon us.
420, yeah. Not a lot of games doing a 420 thing. At least not that I know of.
Oh man, I would kill for a 420 event in Animal Crossing. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I imagine what's his name, Pascal the otter would it's just front and center. Yeah,
Pascal's pretty much the I think sort of the token Animal Crossing stoner.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
well, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Like somebody's got to be doing one. Maybe Call of Duty. That seems their style.
It seems like the right crowd. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like every day in Call of Duty really is 420.
Everybody gets dropped into one map, and it's just a complete smoke out. Just everything. Yeah. Like, man, the visibility is terrible today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, no, it really snuck up on me, so I forgot to make, extravagant 420 plans, but maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just do it in May.
Right. You can do whatever you want. That's one of the perks of being a grown-up DJ.
Right.
Yep. I was going to say, I didn't get your 420 card in the mail on time. I apologize.
Well, see, that's why I need the reminder. Otherwise, this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hopefully, if that's your thing, our listeners are celebrating with some video games and maybe a nice indica or sativa.
Oh, wow, look at this guy.
Fancy weed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, so let's talk about video games. What are you playing? What am I playing?
We got a lot on the list. What do you want to get into? What about, tell me a little bit about the Mutazione.
Mutazione. So finished it. I was talking about this game last week. So sort of quick recap is that you basically spend your summer vacation on an island that has been hit by a comet. And all of the residents are kind of mutated in some interesting way. But you kind of dig into their kind of personal lives and their personal drama. Your grandfather lives there and has been there for a number of years, so you're reconnecting with him. And it's, just kind of this little slice of life in a very unique kind of sci-fi tinged place. And it has kind of a daily calendar where you check in with everybody and you start to grow gardens. Basically, your grandfather was something of a shaman figure on the island, and the gardens on the island that have sort of sustained life and kept the place beautiful have fallen into disrepair. So you kind of take over for him. So you get, you collect seeds, and villagers give you different seeds, and you collect plants and stuff from around the island, and you find cool little nooks all around the island and basically plant a beautiful garden with different types of kind of Jurassic Park tinged flowers and plants, great big giant leaves and exotic strains and stuff like that. And you get a cool little drum that you play mysterious music on, and it makes everything grow super fast. So you get the satisfaction of seeing your garden bloom in front of you. And that's connected to sort of the fortunes of the island and your grandfather's role there, and everybody's sort of perspective on you visiting. And it's interesting and pretty unique from a narrative and characterization standpoint. I finished it. I got to the end and have done all the things that I can do, and had a good time with it. I was pretty satisfied by the finale. It does tend to get a little, kind of new agey hoodoo kind of nonsense, but I think it earns it at that point. You basically have spent a week on an island full of mutants growing mysterious plants, so it kind of goes up its own butt a little bit at the end. But I thought it was fine. I thought it sort of stuck the landing in a way that made perfect sense for everything that had gone on up to that point. The thing that I do like about how they handle the ending, though, is that, credits roll, you go back to the main menu, and 2 new options have popped up. One called Gardens, where you can go in and continue to tend your gardens, which you've planted all over the island, without having to go through all of the, narrative stuff of starting a new island or going back to a previous save. So you can kind of keep them alive and keep, pruning them and adding new plants as you get new seeds and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of neat to sort of create this old little separate thing where you just sort of select which garden you want to tend from the menu, and you get kind of the blissful experience of tending the garden. Item 2 that pops up that I really liked is called Letters. And without sort of getting into sort of specific spoilery kind of things, it is basically sort of like a postscript to the main game, where you are writing a series of letters over time to the residents that you were hanging out with throughout the course of the game. And they are responding to you. But this doesn't happen sort of one after another in kind of rapid fire. The game makes you wait 24 hours between each of them.
Oh, interesting.
So you read your letter out to them, and then it opens up a little block where the next one will be, and it says, come back tomorrow. So you come back tomorrow, or you futz with the clock on your Switch, and you get your response to your letter. So you write them a response, and again, 24 hours later, you get another one. So it sort of adds, a week or something of kind of daily check-ins to the content of the game. And as they're sending you letters in response to your, updates to them, they send you cool new seeds and little, starts and things like that you can drop into your gardens. So it's this really unique perspective on how to sort of do a post game in a game that doesn't really require it. It didn't need it. But it's just a unique way, I think, of kind of keeping it alive a little bit.
Yeah. So how long do you see yourself? Are you doing the gardening thing as well, or are you mostly reading letters?
Mostly reading letters, but as they've, the letters have come with like, oh, hey, we found a couple of seed packets. We found this, this strain of plant that is new to the island that just blew in on the breeze and stuff like that. They'll send you some leaves, some seeds, and I'll go, find a place in one of my gardens to plant them. The planting, in the garden tending is not super compelling. Certainly not enough to like play this game for hours and hours and hours, but I do want to see sort of the correspondence and keep up with the letters and stuff like that. So it's been kind of fun to go back every day and read one of the new letters and keep up with it a little bit. Just what
if it turns out that they wrote like 100 letters and just dumped them all in the game to get distributed out over the next, however long that takes?
Yeah,
are you sending one back in between?
You send a response right away, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'm 3 or 4 days into it. Okay. And then you have to wait for their response. I don't know. I'm not sure if it goes for that long. There's only a couple little blocks on the screen, but it could continue to add blocks, obviously, little question marks, infinitely. But I'm not sure if that's their strategy or if it's just a couple of days.
Well, that's a fun surprise.
Yeah, I thought so too. because you kind of get this like, oh, kind of ending. But then, yeah, the creators of this thing found a way to sort of like to stretch the story out a little bit and give you a little postscript to what happened to everybody after the events of the main game.
Yeah. Oh. That's cool.
Yeah, I was really impressed by it, and just kind of a unique way to kind of keep the thing alive a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is Mutazione.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, lots of fun. Would recommend.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just making a little list of all these little island games that you've been into, because sounds like it could be a good weekend checking this out. So put that on there. Yeah,
it's pretty. I was going to say brief, but it's not really. It's really around the area of like 6-7 hours. You know, total content plus the letter stuff that happens afterwards is a day each, but it's like 5 minutes a day at that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has a pretty satisfying ending. Like I said, there is a weird little subgenre of you are a person who goes to an island where there is a close-knit community. It's just this has been kind of one of the most kind of engrossing of them, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of games where you go visit a little island.
Oh.
I was playing this game and I realized, oh no, it's happening.
It's one of those.
Going to an island. Yeah, so that's just all we talk about at this point. I started playing Sephonie, which is the new game from Analgesic Productions, the team behind Anodyne, and then most recently I discussed Even the Ocean a couple weeks ago.
Oh, right.
But this is their brand new thing, just came out. I was looking forward to this, really excited to jump into it. And I have to say, I feel like I'm just fully indoctrinated into whatever they've got going on with their games at this point. Because I started it up, and I was just like, the title screen loaded up, and it started playing the same sort of like background music. It's all, it's the same composer. So the two developers who did the music for this game and all of their previous games. But it was just, something about it was so familiar. I was like, oh, I'm back. I'm in another one of these games. This is great. I'm just going to chill out here on the title screen for a while. So, I don't know. That was just a pleasant surprise coming off of Even the Ocean a couple weeks ago.
I do love that sort of random moment, and not their video game specifically, because I've never played one of them, but like in any, in a video game that just has a particularly impactful score, that start screen, that music comes up, and you just sit there, and it's like, press start, and you're like, no, I'm gonna wait for a little bit.
I'll get around to it.
Yeah, no rush. Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah. Anyway, so immediately it was very familiar. The premise of this game is so you're not one person going to a mysterious island. You are 3 people. You play as a little research team of these sort of multicultural biological researchers going to Sephonie Island to study the wildlife there. And along the way, something happens. There's like a storm, an unusual storm of unknown origin, and they end up sort of getting stranded on the island and forced to like camp out and just fend for themselves. And as they wait for like a rescue team to show up, hopefully. But at the same time, they're just like, well,
hopefully,
right. At the same time, they seem kind of unfazed by this whole predicament, and they just continue on with their sort of like wildlife research mission. So you're on the island as these 3 researchers, and you go around analyzing the plants and animals living there. And you do this by utilizing the Onyx system, which I guess is like some sort of like neural augment that each of these researchers have. It like plugs into their spinal column or their brain or something, and it allows them to more directly link with the wildlife on this island. So interesting sort of like little sci-fi twist, but it feels very in line with the rest of like this team's games, because they all take place in these weird sort of not quite Earth, but these very surreal worlds where, there are some sci-fi elements. There are a lot of sort of like mystical elements. It's not quite normal reality.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in Sephonie's case, I think this is the first instance where they have actually mentioned, like, all three researchers come from different real-world countries. So I was like, oh, this one takes place in the real world, apparently, except they've got this, like, neural link-up system. So I'm fairly certain that doesn't exist, but they do mention that it takes place sort of in the near future, so who knows? Maybe that's in the works somewhere.
Sure. The new Apple Neuralink.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I want. Anyway,
once again, life turns into Futurama. I have this image of an episode of Futurama with people lined up around the block to get their eye implant, their iPhone jammed into the cornea of their eye.
Sign me up.
Yep.
So it's interesting. Everything I knew about this game going into it was it looks like, well, I mean, first of all, it just looks much more ambitious than their previous projects, which, is not to say their previous projects were not ambitious, but they've come quite a long way from like Anodyne 1 and their earlier works.
Mm-hmm. Sort of in what way specifically? What does ambition look like?
Well, so Anodyne 1 was like a little 2D top-down Zelda game, essentially. Even the Ocean was like a 2D Mega Man game, essentially. And then Anodyne 2 felt like, I guess, like a 3D Zelda game. Not necessarily like... It's not as much of a Zelda game as like Anodyne 1 was. But, it was on sort of like a PlayStation 1 sort of 32-bit level of technology, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then this one, you've got these three characters. The world and all the environments are in 3D once again. It looks more advanced than Anodyne 2. I'd say it's hovering somewhere between that PS1 and maybe PS2 level of fidelity.
Yeah. I'm looking at screenshots now. I see it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's purposely kept kind of like lo-fi a little bit. I think that's like partly that's just their aesthetic, and also they're a small team, so it seems like they're making very smart decisions about how like the art should look. I think it looks actually pretty good.
It's very pretty. It's you can definitely tell that it's sort of reused assets and reused kind of like patterns and stuff like that in the environment, but it's not ugly. They definitely play with color and things like that to make it pop. It's
like very low poly, which is interesting, but it's done very consciously.
It's chunky. It looks chunky.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you go back and look at some PS1 games that are just struggling to, make the most realistic looking character with the technology they have. And, they may have looked impressive back in the day, but if you look at them now, it's like, oh man, that it's not aged especially well. But with this,
it's a tough era. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like that guy, Sam Lake's face grafted onto Max Payne. But this one, it's been designed very thoughtfully, and it's very low poly, but it still looks very good. It's not supposed to be like pushing photorealism or anything.
Right. That's not what they're going for.
But anyway, so what I knew about this game is that it's all in 3D, and it has a lot to do with like, strangely, a lot of 3D platforming, like wall running and all these acrobatics that they were showing off, like leading up to launch. They're like, here's how you're going to have to, do all these jumps across these walls and vault yourself onto high platforms. And I thought, oh, wow, this sounds very different than all of their previous stuff. I think they were going for kind of, like a 3D platformer kind of vibe, like games of that era, which admittedly I didn't play a whole lot of outside of like Mario 64, but somehow it reminds me of like how I would expect something like Banjo-Kazooie or maybe Donkey Kong 64 to play, where you're just doing all this jumping around between these tall platforms.
Yeah. Well, what a treat. Analgesic finally got you to play a 3D platformer, DJ.
I know.
This is a big day for me.
But before we get to that, it turns out that true to sort of their past work, it's kind of like multiple games in one. So you do have this 3D platforming element, but before you do a whole lot of that, you really get into this Onyx system, which is the neural analysis thing you use to link with the animals. And basically what it has you do in order to establish this link is you just play this weird sort of tile matching mini game. So it's all in 2D. It's like sort of my reaction to Even the Ocean. It's so low pressure in that basically all you need to do is you have these red, green, and blue tiles, and you just need to create clusters of 3 or more tiles until you filled up a meter along the top of the screen. And then once you've done that, the link is established. And as you're doing this, there are all these little variable tiles that you can encounter in the on the boards where you're placing these tiles. Like, here's one which prevents you from placing a tile down. Here's one where if you can place one here, but it will like eat the tile that you put down, so you can't use it. So just little things to throw various wrenches into your plans as you're trying to put these tiles down. And again, it seems like something where you start to worry and be like, oh man, look at how many little obstacles this board has on it. I got to be careful this time. But no, not really. It's just like so frictionless. You do have to just be a little mindful about where you put stuff. But up to this point, I have had no problem finishing any of these sort of Onyx puzzles. It's just been a strange diversion from the 3D platforming, but it's pretty fun. There's a little bit of strategy involved.
Do you find yourself sort of wishing that it put up more of a fight? Would it benefit from being harder?
No.
Okay.
I think I would go insane. I don't know if you've ever been playing a puzzle game and you're like, yeah, I'm into this, but you just worry about like, oh man, I barely made it through that last one. This next one might not be fun. You just get to that point where you think, well, this might be where I have to, throw in the towel and I can't play this game anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to ever get to that point. I mean, like, I'm totally fine just sort of breezing my way through it. But again, like Even the Ocean, I don't feel like it's just handing this to me. Like, it's just enough of a challenge for me to like appreciate these puzzles and respect them as I make my way through them.
Excellent.
There's also an undo button, which I thought was just terrific because, like, the very first puzzle, it explains all of the rules to you at once, which admittedly is a lot when you're first starting out and you're not expecting there to be tile puzzles in this game. And the very first move I did, I put down a little cluster of tiles and I was like, oh, that's the wrong place. And now I've just completely screwed myself my very first step into this game. And then I realized there's an undo. And I just hit the undo and everything was great. So I don't know. All of these games have done such a great job in terms of just making the player feel welcome and accommodated, I think. Like I talked about in Even the Ocean, there are a bunch of settings you can switch on and off to make the platforming sections easier. You can just make yourself invincible, I believe. You can just skip all the platforming sections and only do the story stuff if you feel like. But similarly in this, there are all these settings that like, there's just a toggle to make the tile segments easier, which honestly I haven't really needed, but it's there if they ever get to that point.
Yeah.
And then just a bunch of sections or a bunch of options for the platforming stuff as well, which is great. It's good.
I'm a fan of that. I like that stuff in video games. And I don't always use them, but I can imagine sort of case scenarios where, others could benefit from those things. Or, if I'm get to the point where I'm beating my head against a wall and there's just maybe not an auto skip button, but at least one that takes some of the insanity out of some of these challenges, a la Celeste, then that's, it's nice to know that those are there and I don't have to sort of, abandon ship on yet another video game.
Yeah. I want to come back to that in 1 second after I get a little bit into the platforming stuff.
Yeah.
So you figured out the Onyx stuff. It's fine. Occasionally you just do these puzzles. Which also they say they make a point of telling you, like, you don't really need to do all of these. There are a bunch of different animals and plants that you can analyze on the island, but it makes it clear that you don't need to, go for 100% completion, which is what I appreciate. So I start exploring this island and trying to get my head around sort of like the wall running mechanics. I find that, it's interesting. It's sort of like, it's surprisingly technical compared to their previous stuff. I don't know if some of that is just because I'm unfamiliar with it. I'm still sort of like good at my sea legs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to do, there are a lot of cases where you have to like do a wall run and do a little vault and then kind of link these things together to make it all the way onto the top of some huge structure.
Oh, wow.
Plus, there are different obstacles along the way, like sort of bounce platforms and things that'll like launch you and other weird tricks like that. So it does feel a bit like one of those, like, one of the Bowser obstacle courses in Mario 64, where it's just this ridiculous landscape of stuff going on.
Sure. One of the Bowser ships at the end of all the levels, where it's just sort of like a hellscape of things trying to kill you.
Sure. I mean, it's not like to the point where it's like hostile towards you, but some of the sequences can be fairly demanding, I feel like. So that's been interesting. Although, as I was saying, since they have all these accessibility options, they have several levels of it for the platforming stuff. And again, I love the way that these are presented, because the first one is you have infinite dashes while you're in midair. And the other one is you have infinite sprint, which I think just means like you can run along the wall endlessly. Because normally you like run along the wall, but gravity is like pulling you down off the wall. So eventually you have to jump off the wall and make another decision of where you want to go.
Gotcha.
And I love the way they presented these, because the first one, it says, here's infinite dashes. And we recommend trying this. Like if you're having trouble with the platforming, turn this one on before you turn on infinite running, because it's like it better captures sort of the feel of the game, I guess, where you have these additional jumps you can do to like recover your position rather than just, being Spider-Man along the wall the entire time. And just like, I feel like, actually, after trying it a little bit, I feel like that would be a little too easy. But I'll admit, I spent a while doing this platforming, and eventually I just decided, I'm going to try those infinite jumps out and see how that works out. Because some of these sequences, either I was just not seeing the correct path, or I just wasn't able to pull it off consistently. But I felt like I need a little assist here, so I got to turn this thing on. And it was good. It just feels so, you're almost encouraged to try it out, rather than the developer putting in a message like, oh, turning this on is equivalent to just activating baby mode for this game, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, there's no sort of like, this is the way Halo was meant to be played.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's none of that. So I've been sort of like switching that on and off depending on how much trouble each section is giving me. And it's been good, because I think what I really enjoy about it is you have these huge cave structures to explore. And part of it for me is just figuring out like where the next objective is, and kind of looking at all the platforms and like walls and weird cave structures that are in the way, and figuring out like, oh, so I probably need to jump up here, and then I'll run along the wall here and then bounce off this thing. And maybe that works, maybe it won't work, maybe it's just the wrong path to begin with, but that's been a lot of the challenge to me, is just figuring out sort of the right direction, and then worrying less about the execution, because I have those the infinite jumps to fall back on if I really need it.
Right. It sounds a little more demanding than I sort of got the impression of their previous games.
Yeah, I think it's a definite step up in terms of difficulty. So there were some difficulty spikes in the previous stuff, like in Anodyne 1 especially. But yeah, in general, they've been these very sort of breezy experiences. And I think this is the first time I actually turned on any of the assists for any of them. But I could definitely see, somebody trying to get through some of the more challenging platforming in even the ocean. Being able to just float around would be extremely helpful.
And that was the one that was more sort of on par with like a Mega Man style platformer, right?
Yeah.
Which Mega Man's not an easy game by any stretch.
No, and even the ocean did not approach Mega Man levels of difficulty, but still, it's not the most natural thing to everybody. And there was like other stuff in that game that may have appealed to people besides the platforming that they may have been frustrated if they couldn't get to, because they were just blocked by a particularly difficult section.
Right.
So anyway, Not totally sure what to make of the platforming so far, but I'm glad it has the assist options in there. I have to say I'm definitely enjoying it very thoroughly, partially just due to the fact that those options are there, so I can just continue sort of at my own pace, and I'm not getting too frustrated with it.
Yeah. Cool. So is it sort of you're bouncing back and forth between those two kind of objectives? It's sort of, scanning all of the little critters in the environment and then sort of running, jumping, mantling through all of the other places in the environment to get to another point where you scan more critters?
Essentially, yeah. And they made it clear, like, oh yeah, you don't need to scan all of these things to complete the game. But by doing so, you like learn a little bit about the just like the ecology of the island, which is more or less just made up, but it's kind of just fun flavor stuff where it's like, oh, this is, this plant can control the flow of oxygen or something like that around the island. It's like, oh, interesting. I didn't know that about this imaginary animal. So it's fun.
But collecting that or scanning that doesn't change the game or the island in any sort of tangible way. It doesn't impact gameplay.
Not that I've seen. Like, you do, the one thing that is very tangible is you unlock an additional sort of like puzzle piece for the onyx sections, which just makes it easier for you to put these little clusters together. So yeah, it's just kind of like a little bonus.
Cool.
But as you're linking with these the wildlife, you will occasionally find like the large life form in whichever area you're in, and when you link with that, you get a particularly difficult puzzle, a more difficult onyx puzzle. But then in the process of linking with it, you are usually given sort of a flashback to the three characters, I guess, like memories of sort of like their time before they came to the island, just like previous eras in their lives. And it feels like, as you are linking with these life forms and learning more about them, it's kind of a two-way street where, like, I guess the life forms are also able to witness these researchers' thoughts and, like, learn more about them. And that seems like it's all sort of feeding into this larger story that is unfolding. These sections have been very interesting. Again, it feels a little disconnected, like in Even the Ocean, where you would do the Mega Man stuff and then you would come back and talk with your neighbors. But in this, you do either the platforming or the puzzle stuff, and then you just have a little break where you learn about sort of the lives of these researchers you're playing as and like their childhood memories. Like there's this one section where you are cooking a fish for the other researchers because that's like what you have available for dinner that night. And it ends up going off onto this whole segment about all the different ways this one of the characters, or all the different associations and memories they had about fish growing up, like seeing them like swimming around in a pond or like at the supermarket, or their mother was preparing it for dinner or something like that. But just a surprising amount of sort of background depth to these characters, and I'm very curious where all of that is going.
Right, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. All of these games, like all of the analgesic games, have had this really interesting, like, philosophical angle to them. So I'm just, with every new one that comes out, I'm just like, oh man, what have they got, what have they stirred up this time? It's just such a strange thing. Especially just thinking back to Anodyne 1 and thinking, oh, somebody made a little kind of like Zelda game where you're pushing blocks around or whatever you're doing in that game. You're like sweeping up stuff with a broom. To this point where, there are these like surprisingly heartfelt write-ups of like these characters' past. I'm like, oh man. And so that's part of what I was getting at when I'm saying like this one feels especially ambitious. Definitely their most ambitious project so far.
Well, cool. I mean, it sounds, like they definitely have kind of a team value on sort of expanding these stories a little bit, and that it's not necessarily, I don't know. I've never played a Mega Man game, but I presume in Mega Man you don't go back to like a hub world and talk to all the villagers and get their long story and stuff like that. And it seems like there definitely is a priority or a perspective on behalf of these developers to sort of, build some unique narratives and characterizations that in places that you wouldn't expect them in video games.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely it's something it does not have in common with Mega Man. Just the older ones.
Yeah. That's cool, though. I dig that.
Yeah, so really just another weird mix of genres in this game. But that's also just part of the fun of it. It's like every time I start one of these up, I just don't know what's going to happen next. And like you said, it got me playing a 3D platformer, so who knows what's going on.
Yeah. It kind of has me wanting to play it, actually. So what is this on? Is this on the Switch?
Currently, it's just on, I think, Steam and itch. But I've been playing it on my Surface. And there are some points where it chugs a little bit. But other than that, it's been fine. Like, I've been able to do most of the platforming stuff.
Cool.
Oh, when you're talking about, when you first started talking about 3D platformers, I think one of the things I really appreciate about it is that it's just not littered with collectibles. It's more about just exploring the environments.
Forget them out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, oops, we lost you. Occasionally you'll see something, like there are some collectibles, but they'll just be like 2 or 3 in an area, and there'll always be somewhere that's like kind of out of the way. So it feels a little bit like the big coins in the like new Super Mario Brothers games.
Right.
And again, they make a point where you, like the first one you pick up, it says, hey, you found a collectible. You don't need all of these to complete the game, so like don't worry about it unless you want to. And it's like, man, I just love that it feels like the developer is talking to you and kind of reassuring you that you don't get the FOMO as you're playing this and be like, oh
sure.
Man, I missed the collectible. My life is ruined.
Don't stress over this. Yeah. You don't need to collect all of these unless you want the bad ending.
Oh, no.
It's kind of an interesting perspective. I'm not sure if they're sort of like begrudgingly putting sort of like traditional video game hooks into these things, or if there's a sort of a middle ground and sort of like, oh, we'll put them in, but tell people don't stress over it.
Yeah, I mean, each one is it's more than just getting a big coin, because I think all the ones I found so far are like little like food items or something. The first one was, I forget what it was, but I went into my inventory afterwards and looked at it, and they were like, oh yeah, here's the little bag of snacks that you had on the boat on the way to the island or something. I was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting, but again, just fun little insights into these characters.
Right. Well, cool.
Yeah. All their stuff are, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it eventually came to other platforms as well. So I would expect it to be on Switch eventually.
Yeah.
This just came out, and it's like 2 people working on this, so it may be a little while. But until then, you can play it on Steam or on itch.
Cool. I'll keep an eye out for it. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I have another sort of little game that I played over last weekend that is called Refunct.
Was it on an island?
It is kind of. It's I found this article that was like 22 like short video games, like fun kind of like, single sitting video game experiences you should play. I was like, oh, cool. I like games like that. I like being able to sort of see beginning, middle, and end of a video game kind of in one shot. And as I read through the list, it was basically 21 video games I'd played before. So yeah. I'm good. I've kept up on all of those. It's a lot of Firewatch and A Short Hike and Gone Home and things like that. Journey, of course, was on there. The one of the outliers was this game called Refunct that I had never even heard of before. And as luck would have it, it was on the Switch and it was $3. So I'm like, let's give it a shot. Let's play it. I should play everything on the list. Let's play this one.
I actually played this back in the day. I forgot why.
Oh.
It was just recommended to me, maybe. But similarly, I think it was like somebody just said, hey, this game is fun. It's short, worth checking out. So I did.
It's short and cheap, which is kind of my mating call at this point. So I'm like, yes, let's do that. It is. You're kind of on an island. You basically start on a weird little collection of towers in the middle of what appears to be the ocean. You're surrounded by water, and you get no direction whatsoever. But you start playing around with the buttons, and you realize you can jump and you can sort of crouch and crawl under things and. You sort of make your way to the top of this little collection of podiums, basically. And there's a button with a red light glowing from it. You step on the red button, and a whole other series of little pillars pops up out of the water. And every time you step on one of the little platforms to get to the red button, on that series of pillars, all of the platforms turn green. So you're like, oh, I get it. I got to turn all these platforms green and keep pushing all the buttons so more platforms appear. And that's the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a little, doing some jumping around.
Yeah. It's a little toy. Like, there's no plot, there's no characterization. You don't go back to a village and load up some supplies and talk to the innkeeper or anything like that. It's just lather, rinse, repeat. Climb the pillars, turn them all green, push a button, new pillars appear, do it again. Eventually, there's little bouncy platforms. You have the ability to swim, so you can kind of swim under them, and there's cool little pipes and things like that you can use to get around. And
I forgot about the pipes.
The game is very transparent about sort of completion percentage. So as you're working your way through it and you're getting closer and closer to 100%, you realize that maybe there's some platforms I haven't turned green yet. So you start, if you're me, you start getting obsessive about making sure that all of them have turned green before you move on to the next one. It's just a fun little kind of like 1 hour long just toy. Just, in any other video game, this would be a feature. It wouldn't be necessarily the entire game.
Sure. Yeah.
But in Refunct, it's the whole thing, damn it.
Yeah. It's just kind of fun, take a break for an hour and do some jumping around on these platforms.
Yeah.
Maybe get you primed up for playing Sephonie later.
Right, exactly. Just a good little proving ground, yeah. And because it is a video game, occasionally there are, little odd collectibles. I think in Refunct, they're little red kind of floating boxes. And they're generally placed on top of very sort of far off and hard to reach pillars in the ocean. So you have to sort of plan, like, I can jump to that one and then kind of wall mantle and kind of climb up there, and I can do kind of a double jump to get to the next one, and sort of plot in your brain, like, how am I going to get to that place to collect that completely unnecessary and totally not impactful in any way
right
collectible. But again, I wasn't going to move on without having collected all of them for some strange reason. So so it's fun. I had a good time with it. It was an hour well spent kind of playing around with this weird little toy.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be like, oh man, there was no narrative, didn't make any sense. Couldn't understand any of the characters.
No.
Yeah.
What's my motivation? Turn all the boxes green. That's fine.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. If this was a 10-hour video game, I don't know if that would have been enough. It did leave me wanting a little bit more as I sort of like hit 100%. I was like, I could do this for another hour. Probably not 6 more hours, but yeah, 1 more hour of this. Refunct 2. I'd be all over that. Let's do it. But yeah, it was fine. It was a good time. And again, it was $3. It was an hour of my day. It was a mild challenge that I was game for, and I enjoyed playing it. It was fine.
Yeah, go out on a high note. So I always say.
Right. Don't overstay your welcome. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if this was like, oh, you finished stage 1. Now do the next 500 stages. You'd be like, oh, I don't know if that's what I want.
Yeah. Oh, it's just one of those Picross games. There's just more. There's always more. Yeah. No, it's not that. It's this very sort of finite, limited feature thing that, it does that one thing pretty well. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And you, like you said, you go out on a high note.
Yeah. Leave them wanting more.
I think it even has
so many sequels come out where I'm just like, I don't need any more of that game. Like, the first one was enough. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's my sort of perspective on the Tiny Tina thing, the like Borderlands 4 or whatever it is that just sort of came out. I'm like, no, I get it. I get what you're doing. Yeah. But I'd take a little more for Refunct. I don't think they've overstayed their welcome.
Well, I'm sure there's got to be something else out there similar to this.
Yeah, I need a list of like 26 video games that are short you should play. Yeah. So find me 4 more Refuncts.
20 the best Refunct inspired like half-hour itch platformers.
Right, yeah. That's probably the way to go, is I really just need to start digging into itch and find.
Yeah. You should do that sometime. I'd be
concept
curious.
Games, yeah.
There's just there's so much weird stuff on there. Some of them are good, some of them not as good, but just It's like just grabbing a random, I don't know what the analog for this is at some point, but just like, a random movie off the shelf or a random, or like hitting a shuffle on, your music player and being like, oh,
it's like using the I'm feeling lucky button on Google.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
Or buying a book at the airport.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it'll be the best book I've ever read, but probably not.
Yeah, probably not, but, hopefully it'll be interesting for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it'll get me to LA, and I won't hate myself afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this is called Refunct. It's $3. It's on surprisingly just about everything. It's on the PlayStation 4. It's on the Switch. I believe it's on Steam. It's $3 everywhere. So yeah, if this appeals to you in any way and you want a little kind of 1 hour fun little diversion, check it out.
Yeah. Even if it doesn't appeal to you, just play it anyway. It'll be good for you.
A single person developer. The credits at the end were very quick. It was just one developer who did the whole thing. He had a little help with the music, but other than that, yeah, just one dude made the whole thing.
Cool. I'm glad to see when stuff like this eventually makes its way onto other platforms. Because I'll just do the weird itch thing and be like, oh, this game is strange looking. I'll try it out, and then half an hour later, I was like, yep, that was weird and still enjoyable.
The frog
it feels like, sure, is that on other stuff? I don't even know. But sometimes I'll play a game where I'm like, I may be the only person who's ever played this game. And that's probably not true in most of these cases, but it kind of feels like it. So seeing one of these pop up, I'm like, oh, the Switch, which, millions of people have a Switch and probably use the eShop every day. The fact that it is able to get out to audiences like that is I don't know, I just like that. Yeah. Well, it has to be super gratifying if you're the maker of said game, knowing that, even you're probably not going to do, Mario Kart numbers, but yeah, you're going to get this cool little toy that you made out in front of a bunch of people that maybe would not have discovered it otherwise. Yeah. And maybe someday, if your luck is right, you'll end up on a list of the 20 best short video games. Yeah, absolutely. Let me dig up the link for that if any of our listeners are interested and want to check it out. There's a lot of really, really good games on there that I would stand by. The Stanley Parable, that was another one that was on the list. And there is a new version of that, like a definitive version of that coming out next week. So, yeah. I would highly recommend that one as well, and I'm going to play it again. I'll come back to it here on the podcast shortly. But yeah, lots of really, really good video games on that list. Not the least of which is Refunct as well. So I'll drop a link to that in the show notes if anyone's curious and wants to check it out. Cool. Well, let's wrap this thing up. You good? You feel good? I think I'm good. Yeah. Excellent. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should definitely follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord, chat about video games, complain that you haven't received your Playdate or your Steam Deck yet, which seems very popular on the Discord lately. That was just you. Let's be honest there. It's me and like two other people. But yeah, no, it's cool. We've got a lull in like big video game releases, so we've definitely been talking about sort of like, what are you playing? What have you been digging into that now that you have, a little bit of a break from the onslaught of AAA giant video games. So yeah, it's been fun. Be still my heart. But if you want to join our Discord and hang out with us and talk about such things, you can get a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Spotify, one of those things. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And help us out by telling your friends about the show. Just type in whatever Randy just said and hit that I'm feeling lucky button, and something exciting will happen. Google Spoticasts. Yeah. We want to give thanks again to Protodome for our intro and outro music this week. What you should do now is head over to protodome.bandcamp.com where you can find more of his stuff and maybe buy an album. Maybe buy two albums. Maybe buy all the albums. There you go. Here you go. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson. This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.